Folks, I'm seeing a lot of takes online about adding one button rotation and highlighted assistant to the World of Warcraft. I've been watching some videos, I've been reading the old Reddit, trying to absorb as many takes as I can in order to help inform my own. There's some good takes, there's a couple valid concerns, there's some absolutely cooked opinions, but I'm also noticing a gap when people are talking about this, particularly about one button rotation, and that's the truly new player. So that's what I'm going to try and talk about today. We're going to look at both single button rotation and highlighted assist, see what they're actually doing, and talk about why I think Blizzard can, with a little bit of work, turn this into a really good gradual ramp for learning how to play not just World of Warcraft, but MMOs in general. Now I'm going to cut between me playing on live and playing on PTR and some breathtaking artist renditions of what Blizzard needs to do to achieve this. But first, let's just get something out of the way really quickly. Obviously, the number one use case and a really good one for one button rotation is just accessibility. There's people who may not be able to play this game as effectively as is necessary, and they still want to experience the world, and anything you can do to help them do that, I think, is an absolute win. It's easy as somebody who plays World of Warcraft a lot to look at stuff like world content in WoW and go, oh, this is insanely easy. Why would you need a one button assistant for something like this? But it's not easy to everyone. Even I've been in situations where like I log into an alt that I haven't played in a million years, don't know what buttons to hit, and find myself getting clapped by a world mob while I'm gathering to level. So if there are ways to just ease that burden and make it more accessible for players that want to play casually, I'm all for it. It also makes this game really easy to play on controller, which is good for a variety of physical disabilities. And I also like to just lean back with my controller sometimes and play this game. I do it on my couch upstairs. It's fun. But the group I truly want to talk about is the new player. And I don't just mean the new WoW player. If you've never tried to teach anybody how to play WoW, it's not an easy experience. But that experience is exacerbated if that person has never played any kind of MMO before. I actually went through this a few years ago at the start of Dragonflight launch, trying to teach a buddy who's never played any MMO how to play WoW. He's played a bunch of video games before, mostly console, so video games aren't a stranger to him by any stretch. But getting him to understand like the interplay of abilities, how they combo, how and when to hit them, all that stuff was really rough. Like way tougher than I thought it would be, and the game has a horrible ramp for teaching people how to do that. And that was with a guide. I can't even imagine like trying to do it on your own as a brand new player. And that's what I think one button rotation to highlighted assist to actually playing the game can be. A ramp. I'm going to demo this flow with Outlaw Rogue just because it's the spec that I've mained for some time. I'm sure there are excellent Outlaw Rogues who will watch this video and be like, Mike, you didn't talk about this or this or this. And you're right, because this isn't an Outlaw Rogue guide. But I do think it's important to talk about a few specifics of Outlaw Rogue in order to help illustrate the path that I think this can be. We're not going to focus on all the things that are important to Outlaw gameplay, but at a high level, you build combo points and you spend them on finishers as Outlaw. Importantly, hitting finishers as Outlaw also reduces your cooldowns on a number of abilities. While doing this, there are three things that I think are core to the Outlaw experience that we're going to use as anchor points for this video. The first is Roll the Bones. This is a cooldown that gives you a random number of specific buffs from a pool. For the sake of simplicity and without going into specifics, I'm basically hitting Roll the Bones on cooldown until I have 5 or more buffs, and then I'm letting those buffs run for their full duration. The second is Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush is an important cooldown. You basically want to hit it on cooldown, and it increases your max energy, the resource rogues use, the rate you get energy back, and buffs your attack speed for 20 seconds. You're basically trying to have Adrenaline Rush up all the time, which is accomplished via our third anchor point, Vanish. This one is controversial because of how annoying it is, but Vanish is an ability that simply puts you into stealth. What we're actually looking for is what happens when you get out of stealth. When you're stealth, stuff like Adrenaline Rush pauses its clock, so it stops ticking down. When you come out of stealth, you enter a window called Subterfuge. You'll also hear people call this a crackshot window sometimes, where your abilities and buffs still act as though you're stealthed. This allows us to extend Adrenaline Rush, and because one of our finishers between the eyes has no cooldown while we're in stealth or subterfuge, we get to hit it a lot, which reduces our cooldowns, allowing us to roll the bones and Adrenaline Rush sooner. These three things, along with just a general priority of the finishers, is what makes up the core loop of Outlaw. With that out of the way, let's swap over to the PTR and look at what one button rotation actually does with the help of Past Mic. Open the spellbook, gives you the prompt to drag this down to your bar, but if you mouse over it, you can see the actual action priority list or priority that it's going to go through these abilities. So looking at this right now, it's going to ambush to build combo points, then you're going to hit between the eyes, then it wants to make sure you have Blade Flurry up, then it's going to tell you to dispatch. Killing Spree is also on this list. Pistol Shot is on this list. Roll the Bones is on the single button assistant list, which I think is very interesting. And Sinister Strike. So those are the 8 abilities that it's going to use in the single button assistant. Off the hop, based on what I described about Outlaw, you probably noticed two things. The first is that Adrenaline Rush is not on this list, so it's not going to tell you to hit Adrenaline Rush, which is a pretty important cooldown. And the second is Vanish, which if you're not vanishing, you're not getting the subterfuge windows. And those subterfuge windows really help with the cooldown reduction that allows you to keep Adrenaline Rush up, but is also what kind of enables you to roll the bones pretty frequently until you get high enough stacks. Now, single button rotation here is going to handle roll the bones for us, so I'm interested to see how often it actually prompts us to roll the bones. Thanks, Past Mike. As we go through one button rotation, it does some pretty basic stuff. It gets Blade Flurry up, it builds combo points, it tells us what finishers to hit, etc. It also does roll the bones for us, but importantly, does not hit roll the bones with the same rules that we would optimally. It rolls, and it doesn't ask you to roll the bones again until the buffs drop off. Suboptimal, the gamers cry, but I think it's okay for it to be suboptimal, and I'm going to tell you why. In my day job and in many business jobs, you have to make decisions based on numbers and data. You're always trying to find the best data you can, but sometimes the data is murky, but it's still good enough to be what we call directionally accurate. This means that while specific details might not match the truth of the ending, it's close enough that you can use it to make a judgment call or inform a decision. In the case of both OBR and highlighted assist, and in the context of teaching a new player via stages versus just trying to onboard them to every nuance and detail all at once, we care about directional accuracy. The second thing that's important to think about with OBR is what it's actually trying to emulate. A World of Warcraft player will say it's trying to emulate your rotation, but zoom out for a second beyond the World of Warcraft. In many action games, particularly arcadey action games, attacking is pretty straightforward. You hit X, you do an attack, you hit X again, you still attack, but the attack importantly looks different. These guys are animated together in a way that each swing is distinct and pretty clearly a different press of the button for each attack in the chain, even though it's the same button. It's that concept, the concept that attacks chain together, that I think OBR is good for teaching people. And for teaching somebody that attacks interact with one another and there's a flow to it all, directional accuracy is all we actually need. But how do you move them beyond just the initial starting point of hitting that button over and over again? To do that, I want to briefly call attention to something else that Ian Hazzikostas said about add-ons.
The single most popular add-on used across the entire game is a damage meter. We definitely want more nuanced measures of success and understanding, like how successful were you or how much did you contribute on this run, highlighting things like interrupts, highlighting things like avoidable damage to give a fuller picture of performance. But at the end of the day, I think for someone who's trying a new spec, trying a new talent build, getting a new trinket, and they want to see like how did this affect my performance compared to the last run, that's an important piece of information to have.
The inclusion of a damage meter in WoW, I think, is actually the missing piece of this onboarding ramp. At the high level, when you're playing the class and reading about the class and in the class discords, optimizations are happening all the time. New interactions get found, the slightest balance tweak can just sometimes dramatically change your rotation, and in general, everybody is just trying to squeeze as much as they can out of the orange. Trying to target that for one button rotation or highlighted assist would be a constantly moving target for Blizzard's APL or action priority list. But using their own directionally accurate APL combined with a built-in damage meter gives Blizzard something important: relative predictability. You obviously can't account for pull sizes or what the rest of the group is doing, but I think it's safe to say that Blizzard's own damage meter would have access to at least as much information as Details currently has. That means they know what buttons you're hitting, how often you're hitting them, what buttons you aren't hitting, and probably if you're using one button rotation or not too. And they probably have a good idea with that APL of what your damage ceiling looks like under certain conditions. Totally made up number and scaling, but let's just assume they know that if you're hitting one button rotation only, you're not hitting Adrenaline Rush, you're not hitting Vanish, you're not hitting any other buttons except your one button, that you're probably going to cap out around 2000 DPS. When they see you're doing 2000 DPS consistently, now they have an opportunity for a new tooltip. One that says, hey, you're doing this right now. Try hitting Adrenaline Rush to do more damage. In this way, you guide the player into adding a new button. And not just adding a new button to their one button rotation, but introducing them to the concept that there are more buttons that I can press than just this one while I'm in combat. And if I do, it's going to help me. Okay, so I'm back. I've importantly also now turned on numbers on my cooldowns on my bars, which I think is going to be important for this demonstration. Now I'm going to try, as previous Mike described, hitting this single button rotation, but pretending that the game prompted me to use Adrenaline Rush when I can, when I see that it's available. I'm a new player. I don't really understand how OGCDs versus GCDs work necessarily. I'm running in, I'm hitting Adrenaline Rush, and we're gonna go. Maybe I'm noticing as well that I have more buffs than I typically would. Now we're out of energy again, but Adrenaline Rush is almost off cooldown, so now I'm a new player, I see that, and I can hit it again. My rotation's getting a little bit better. It's still very far from optimized, right? I'm not hitting the subterfuge window, but I am hitting Adrenaline Rush. The real magic happens now. You've introduced a few tooltips to the player. You've got them adding a couple of their own button presses into the mix with one button rotation. And the Blizzard in-game damage meter is watching them, and they're doing much better. They're now hitting 5k in our made-up DPS stat-squished world. But now we've hit another plateau for the player where there's not much more they can do to optimize their damage while using single button rotation. Cue a new pop-up. Hey, you're doing very well. Do you want to try turning on highlighted assist to do even more damage? And maybe if they click yes on that prompt, you even give them a brand new class related quest, reports to your class leader, who teleports you somewhere where they can explain what a few of your abilities do in a little more detail, as it teaches you to map the abilities to individual keys. This might sound outlandish, but it already exists in the game. Before Dragonflight, when you made a class trial, it teleported you to an airship that did exactly this. Repurpose this concept, get them used to mapping individual buttons and hitting them, and then send them back into the world ready to use their highlighted assistant to reach even greater heights. They do this for a while, maybe they stumble a little bit, but they start to get it. It starts to click, and now our enterprising new player is doing 10k on the meter. They're having the time of their lives, and Blizzard knows this is basically where our APL tops out. You can't do much better than this with the guidance that we are giving you. Our player receives their final pop-up. You're a real rogue now, Blizzard says, proud of the player. Keep refining your stabbing skills by seeking out other rogues in game and exchanging tips and tricks, which is the most polite way I could think of to say, go to wowhead and read a class guide and probably find your class Discord too. Actually, honestly, maybe they just link to wowhead. They already linked to wowhead in support articles for the game, so why not just finish the job? Through this, and because of the predictability of Blizzard's not optimal but directionally accurate APL, the player now has a foundation of knowledge that they can use to help try and understand what a class guide is talking about. And we have successfully onboarded one new player into MMOs and the World of Warcraft. Is it a little bit of an optimistic outlook? Yeah. Does it require some other stuff from Blizzard that isn't in the game at the time OBR goes live? Oh yeah. But if you squint, you can see how this is a tool that can be used to onboard new people into the game. Really, my reason for making this video was just seeing people not really consider the segment of people that might want to get into WoW, but truly have no idea what to do. And you might be watching this video and go, why not just introduce them one button at a time? Isn't that what leveling is supposed to do? How is this better than that approach? And honestly, I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying it's different. When I was trying to teach my friend, even getting him on board with the idea of like, these are all buttons you bind to the keyboard and you're gonna bind them all to different keys and you're gonna hit all of those keys, that was a foreign concept to him. He wanted to just click. There are things that we don't think about as people that have played this game and this genre for 20 plus years. And those are the things that I think OBR is going to help with. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it a ton. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. You can write whatever you want down there. You can write papaya for all I care. It is truly impossible to overstate how much actions like that actually help a video and a channel. That's all I have to say about OBR and highlighted assist for today though. So now I'm gonna go play WoW instead of just talking about it. Thank you for watching. Okay, bye.